Resident Evil 4.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Resident Evil 4 hard? This is not hard. There is no hard. No, this is professional, sorry. Professional no damage run. This is chapter 522. I'm about to kill a regenerator, and you need to be aware here, folks. If you're playing along with this and you're using this as kind of like a visual guide, there's another one. And he will sneak up on you and do a move which he's done to me a few times on this sequence, where he grabs you from quite the distance. He has good old Dalsim hands, or if you're an updated Street Fighter player, Seth hands. So be aware of it, but luckily it takes him a long time to get here, so usually you can kill this fella and deal with him accordingly. And the good thing here is that the checkpoint is literally the door you saw me enter at the very beginning, so you don't lose any progress really. It's just one of those things where sometimes the RNG gets you because the RNG gods were not smiling. And is this guy tougher than the previous ones? I might speed the next one up. So I hit the door for the checkpoint. I do that so that I don't have to kill him again, just in case I fuck up on the next one. It's a really easy way of controlling the game. You've seen me do it numerous times, and you should be doing it yourself, unless you're going for some kind of, you know, single segment speedrun type thing. That music signifies there's another regenerator, as when there are no enemies, there's usually no music. So I ran into this room, but I thought I should probably kill this guy before I mess about picking up items, because if he damages me, I have to do it all over again, and it's a waste of time. So be very careful when you do that first movement to get towards them. You'll notice every single one I've stabbed him from behind. I don't have any kind of, you know, fetish for the back of regenerators or anything, but when you stand in front of him when he's down, when the crown of his head is facing you, he can do a jump bite, and it's very fast and it's very difficult to dodge. So this is one of the safest avenues of stabbing this creature. And luckily enough, there's not that many left in the game. They're an enemy that are very specific to this part of Resident Evil 4. But in the previous videos, I was talking about my foray into Wii U-ness, and I was mentioning some things that I'd done with the Wonderful 101 demo and the Monster Hunter 3 demo, Ultimate. And then I was saying I was going to elaborate, and a day passed since I mentioned that because this video actually crashed. It ended up hard killing Adobe Premiere on my desktop, and I couldn't be bothered to restart, so I just decided not to do any more commentaries for that day, and I just kind of let it go. But I'll continue that tangent now. And I was mentioning that the demos on the Wii U have a limit to them, which is kind of baffling because it's forcing people not to really play the demos in some ways. In some ways they think they're making themselves more protected so that you can't just, you know, get the milk for free type notion, but at the same time the whole point of a demo is to put your game in a player's hand who perhaps might not have touched your game in the most accessible, interesting and inviting way you can. And by limiting how many times they can play it and show their friends and boot it, you're limiting your audience right then and there. There's no two words about it. You have to be a very particular type of individual who can stand to do the same thing over and over and over again when you can just put down a little bit of money and have an infinite amount of that over and over and over again thing. Because a good example here would be the Wonderful 101 demo. It is half of a level, and those levels last about 20 minutes long, so it's a good 10 minutes of content and then an additional secret mission. In the game, like, I've already done 2 secret missions and I've done about 5 levels, which have all been twice as long as that demo section, and I'm like 1/10 through the game. There is so much more to see. Like, why would they ever have such a barrier of entry? It seems incredibly strange to me. So I think the demos leave something to be desired. I think the fact that they don't have enough demos, they're not really getting games out into players' hands, they're not really supporting the third parties, they're not really doing much of a push at all. And then there's the system itself. I bought the basic version, which comes with an 8GB hard drive, because you can attach external ones to compensate for the lack of the 32. And the first thing this machine does, guys, once you set up your Mii and all that bullshit that no one cares about, is when you try and hook up to the store or you hook up to any of the Miiverse and things, it needs to download a mandatory update. And this mandatory update I had no idea about, and when I googled it, because I was quite concerned, it turns out that this thing is legendary. Legendary, and in legendary for the wrong reasons. So I set this thing off updating, and I'm sat there with the Wii in my hand. I'm thinking, God, this pad is weird and different, but exciting because it's new, and I kind of see the potential in it. So I'm all optimistic. This is going to be great. I can't wait to just mess around on the dashboard, check the settings, you know, do all that amenity nonsense. And after about 10 minutes, there was no bar. There was no blue in the long bar. And I was like, has it crashed? Has something gone wrong? What the hell is going on here? So I did a search, and all the results were essentially the Wii U update of doom, which stopped people from accessing their Wii when they got it on the day it came out. And people were blaming people's internets, they were blaming Nintendo servers, they were blaming the fact that, you know, because it was the day of launch, the servers were getting hit really high. They blamed all this kind of stuff. Well, I can tell you right now, guys, as of, you know, a year and a half since this thing has launched, I don't think the servers are getting banged as hard as they were on day one. And this thing still took an eternity, and there's a lot of factors for this. There's a fact that my internet's not the strongest. It was during the day, which is the peak time, which means it's even weaker. And then it's just this crazy large update, which is apparently 5 gigabytes. Mandatory install update for things that should have been on the machine, and probably will be if you buy the premium one, which came out later. And the funny thing is, that 5 gig needs to go somewhere, so the 8 gigabyte hard drive has now got 5 gig removed off it before you've even pressed a fucking button to play anything. And there's nowhere when they're selling them do they mention that this is a thing, so there's people who, you know, have the intention of purchasing things off the marketplace that are probably never going to be able to do that because they're going to have to either get a hard drive or a portable hard drive, which is, you know, not advertised at all. There's no transparency with that, so it's this really underhanded thing, the first thing that happens to you. And when I was looking on those forums, there were people saying, like, it takes an hour, it's disgusting, it takes an hour, nothing should take an hour. You know, this makes the PlayStation look great. And admittedly, the PS3 has massive issues with updates. The updates take far too long. The entire infrastructure that Sony has for that kind of stuff is just not good enough yet because they're not experienced enough at doing it. And I pray the PS4 is better. I know it will be. It has to be. It can't be any worse. And that's one of those greater evils with Microsoft. You know, say what you want about them, hate them, but they've got that stuff down because they've been doing it so long on the PC side. But the Wii U, people were complaining about an hour. It took me 6 hours to download that update. And the worst part was it kept failing. And the only saving grace of this entire situation was it cached how much it downloaded. So when I reinitiated it continued from where it was, so I didn't have to do it from the beginning, because if I had to do it from the beginning every time it failed, I would have a dead Wii U, because I would never be able to do it, because the connection, for whatever reason, just does not stay synced. It breaks all the time. And there were people saying that the Nintendo helpline that people were phoning who were having this same issue, the people were telling them to move the console closer to your router, because the technology that's used in the Wii U is just different to, you know, standardized electronics, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I didn't do it because my consoles sit really close to my router anyway. It was just a combination of their shitty servers, their shitty service, and my shitty internet coming together in this cocktail of misery. And a 6-hour update is disgusting, you know? What can you do while that's happening? Nothing, because the console is just fixed on that screen. It's a dead console for 6 hours. And I know that's my fault, that's my provider, but the worst part is because it kept failing, I had to press OK on the fail screen, reinitiate it, and press like 4 menus to get it back up and going. So I couldn't even ignore it. I couldn't even let it do its thing and go do something else, you know? Go see my girlfriend, you know? I've got a couple of things I need to pick up at the shop. All that kind of great stuff, you know? Just the stuff we do when there's nothing else we're doing. But I couldn't do that because I had to sit and mother this fucking faulty bandwidth machine. And I just don't understand how anybody thinks that that's acceptable. And it's that really sad thing that I've been very harsh on Nintendo and the Wii and the Wii U in general, because Nintendo to me are like a bittersweet lover. They're somebody who I held in my heart for a very long time. I had them on this pedestal, and then they got lazy. And with this laziness came this lethargy that has essentially bit them in the arse on this console. And because of the games that I really want to play are on that system, that's the main driving force for getting the machine. I have no affinity for them at all anymore. I think they're more novelty than anything else. But when I had this in my hand, when I first opened the box, and when I booted it up, and I saw what it was, and I felt it, I understood it. I felt that childhood excitement that I've not had in a very long time with games. You know, it's like, this could be really cool. This is so different. This might just be what I need. You know, this might just be that different perspective on gaming that reignites a flame, you know, in the dying heart of people that are getting murdered by these annualized sequels and this uninspired game design. And then that update just killed that motivation completely. And I think it's a big shame. But it got worse, unfortunately. And it's all due to the fact I don't know how to navigate the UI, but it's not my fault. The UI is very confusing and not very user-friendly either, which is kind of contrary to the way it looks. It looks like something that was designed for a child, yet it doesn't function like something that an adult could navigate. And the weird thing is this duality between pad and screen that is essentially permeating this entire system. It's the novelty of the system. And in some ways it works really interestingly and really well. In other ways it's just baffling. Like, there are symbols to all these different places that are represented by icons, but when you hover over them or when, you know, you cycle through them, it doesn't tell you what they are. It doesn't name them. So you have to go into them to find out what they are. And when you go into them, it loads an interface, which is not the smoothest thing because it's quite slow. So it might have been Wii TV. Like, I don't want Wii TV, but I clicked on it because I didn't know what it was and you didn't tell me what it was. So now I'm on this interface that I'm trapped in and I need to get back out of so I can find the thing I'm looking for, which at the time was the store. And it was just really baffling, and it made me wonder, does it expect you to have a Wii remote hooked up so you can hover the hand across and it'll tell you what it is? And in the end, I ended up pressing the dash button equivalent, and when the dash comes up, it names them all. But what the fuck is the point in the standard UI when it doesn't do what it's supposed to do and you have to do something else to even know what you're messing with? And it's just really weird and backwards and confusing and just, I don't know, just baffling. And then I logged into an account, I tried to make an account, I don't know why, I'm probably never going to play it online. And then it wouldn't let me do it. It kept saying something was going wrong. I'd already hooked up the internet. You know, it wasn't telling me that the name had been taken or anything, it just wasn't happening. It was, you know, Nintendo error 9.9, whatever, fucking 100 hyphen nonsense. Just random error stopping me from doing it. So I was like, well, this sucks because I want to download demos. And then it let me on the store anyway, which is really confusing. You know, okay, that's kind of good. You don't have to associate a gamer tag thing, a me or whatever, to get to the internet stuff. That's quite cool, quite user-friendly. And I was able to go forward and download the things, and they downloaded, I installed them. But there's just an overwhelming feeling of this confused presentation, because for all intents and purposes, it looks like it's been designed for anybody to use, that it's user-friendly, that it's for, you know, for children, for adults, for people of any age. But then when you get on it, it's just kind of strange. And I appreciate that all UIs are strange when you first access them. You know, the 360s was weird. In fact, the 360s gets worse because they've added ads, they've added different blades, and they've slowed it down. Every single update they've done has made it slower, which is a bad thing. And then there's, you know, is it the XMB for Sony, which I haven't seen what that is on PS4, but as long as it's anything but that massive, ridiculous list of features that are hidden, and, like, you have to be a techie to understand what half of them even do without messing around in it, because they've just nothing but jargon. And then there's this flip side on the Wii where it's very simple and it's simplified, but it's too much so, where you don't know what you're clicking. And I'm hoping that it's just, you know, the teething problems and it's my ignorance, and I'll get better at it and I'll discover it and I'll work out how to use it. But on a first impressions basis, not very good. But thank you very much, guys. That was quite a tricky sequence, but as you see, it's all about using your weapons well, keeping them away from you and Ashley, and knowing where your checkpoints are just in case you make a mistake. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.